Well, hello, and welcome to the Friday Eve edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. It is a lovely sunny morning out there, isn't it? The dawn of a new day, as they say. Those with money in the stock markets likely breathing a sigh of relief this morning. The best day on the American markets, at least, since the Second World War. The rally sparked, of course, on news that the U.S. president was pausing his reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, at least the big ones. Now, a 10% tariff remains in place for most, and more importantly, the 25% tariff on steel and aluminum and cars outside of Kuzma is still on. Of course, Canada not included in the reciprocal tariffs during that spectacle in the Rose Garden last week. So far for us, really, not a lot of change. Just another chaotic day at the White House. 24 hours ago, I was reading headlines that Trump has a spine of steel and he'll never back down. The trade secretary yesterday saying that this pause was always part of the plan, the art of the deal, right? Max pressure, then ease off to get the deal that you want. That might be the truth, but answer me this question. If the CEO of a huge company posted to social media, in all capital letters, that this was a great time to buy 3 hours before making a major announcement that would move the markets, that the CEO knew would move the markets, there'd be a lineup of feds at the door launching investigations. Now, I'm not an economist, nor do I play one on television, but to have Trump post that 3 hours before pausing tariffs kind of feels like it's, I don't know, insider trading, or at the very least is completely inappropriate. Now, I bet a lot of people got rich on that bounce yesterday, and I bet they'll continue to do so, or they'll sell off and pocket the profits. Those of you that called me this week saying that Trump was just manipulating the markets, feels an awful lot like you were right this morning. Anyway, we're watching the North American markets are just starting to open up now. Pre-market trade, they were down about 300 points, at least in New York. Not sure if the lift from yesterday will continue through today, and we will keep you up to date on that. We've talked to our next guest a number of times as this ongoing tariff business with the United States has been going, and we're very pleased to welcome back the Associate Professor in International Development Studies at Dalhousie University, Robert Huish, to the show. Robert, how are you?
Good morning. Yeah, it's a dizzying, nauseating morning if you're watching the markets closely, isn't it, Dan?
It has been all week, and we'll get to that in a second. But yesterday, obviously, you watched it like the rest of us watched what happened there. Was it appropriate for the president 3 hours before he knew he was going to take that pause off to tweet something out that, hey, maybe it's a good time to invest?
Oh God, no, that's actually libelous. That should not happen. And looking at what he's done more broadly in the specific law firms that he's also targeted in the last couple of weeks, like this is active manipulation by the White House into areas of U.S. society that it really has no business in. And, if former presidents like Ronald Reagan were alive today, he would be flabbergasted by this, because everything that Trump is doing right now is actually putting more direct government involvement and executive power of the government into areas of the U.S. society where traditionally it hasn't belonged, right? It's usually like, let the finance sector deal with itself, let investment deal with itself, and to have this global tariff war that will continue on is basically showing that all the power comes from Trump's Sharpie. And there should be active investigations, and there should be judicial action on this for sure.
The trade secretary yesterday said that this was, or it might have been the White House spokesperson, one of the two, said yesterday that this is follows the blueprint laid out in the Art of the Deal book. This is the way that Trump does business. He puts max pressure on, and then he backs off to get the tariff or the deal that he wanted. Do you think that that's what he's doing here, or is this just a fly by the seat of your pants? This is what I feel like this half hour.
Yeah, so there's an element to that. Those are instincts that he's built over the years in establishing casinos and hotels, many of which that went into bankruptcy. So there's the end result of that art of the deal. But what really we're seeing is that when a casino is not a global economy, and nor is a global economy a casino. And when we see this sort of erratic and constantly erratic behavior, sure, the markets went up steep yesterday. They didn't recover fully, and they'll probably trickle back down again, and we'll see this little looming ride to the bottom. The erratic, impulsive nature that Trump is showing right now, with a 90-day pause on the global tariffs and some exemptions along the way to other countries, and yet ramping it up against China, because it's changing so much week to week, and with really him not being able to predict the reaction of his adversaries and then responding just as he's done, that is really problematic for any sort of long-term investment, especially when we're talking about manufacturing or we're talking about bringing all those American jobs back on shore. That's not an attractive scenario for companies to invest long-term into factories or into deep commitments that could last 20 or 30 years when the playbook is changing month by month. So in that way, the art of the deal is a way you can kind of intimidate your adversaries when it comes to real estate. But when it's trying to create a secure, stable environment for prosperity, job growth, security, no, this is not the way it's playing out.
Robert, you mentioned China, the embargo, or the embargo. Well, that's where it's come to now. But the tariff is at 125%. Some of in the economy world are saying that because it's over 100% now, it can be considered to be an embargo against China. That all being said, yesterday that very same trade secretary said that they're starting to see Chinese goods flooding into the European market because they're trying to avoid the American market. The press secretary shut that down very quickly. I don't think that's what they want people to know, but that's what's happening. Is that going to be the end result of this? China is obviously, at least at this point, not looking to back down on these things. Are they just going to avoid the American market?
They can. They absolutely can. Now, this is the thing with China, is that it is a centralized economy. So that means that the Communist Party of China can make direct decisions over all sorts of elements of the economy that many other countries can't. So things like controlling currency values, fluctuating the inputs and production of certain goods, imports, exports, all of that can be done through Chinese bureaucracy. Now, the other thing coupled with that is that if we roll the clocks back to the COVID years, that China showed just how much power it has to make great pivots within its own society. If it needs to shut down a factory and build up a new one, they can probably do that in a few months. So what Mr. Trump here is forgetting is he's really didn't read the strength of his opponent when he's taking on China. And he's dealing with the second largest economy in the world that is deeply centralized and organized by a political party that can make big pivots quickly that the U.S. economy can't. So what's likely to happen here is that everything on Amazon is going to start to go up in price, right? The consumer goods in the U.S., the majority of it does come from China still. Some grocery products and fruits and vegetables we see, more Mexico and the Americas. But for the little things that we would find on Amazon or the dollar store, and then components into bigger things, all of that is going to go up. Now, will he likely have to revert back in another 2 weeks or so? Probably. He'll probably back down from this. But the big thing underneath all this, Dan, is that while we can sort of visualize and sort of see the tides shifting, if it's with prices in the grocery store or on Amazon or watching the stock market, the big thing underneath all this, and this is what really governs an economy, is the treasury bonds and the U.S. dollar has been a traditionally safe place for investment. So right now, the Canadian dollar is creeping up because the U.S. dollar is creeping downward. And there is a huge treasury bond sell-off yesterday in the United States, or it's been going on, which is actually increasing interest rates. So the treasury bonds are really important because that sort of gives you the pulse, the vital signs of the U.S. economy. And it's going in a direction right now that's indicating recession, if not depression. And the biggest purchaser of those treasury bonds is China, and they're selling them off quickly.
Can Trump win a trade war with China, do you think?
Not under these conditions, because the real quiet balance of power between the U.S. and China, which sometimes is discussed, but probably not as openly as it should be, is just how much of the U.S. Treasury bonds China holds. So that means that China holds on to a lot of American debt. And if they start cashing that in, the U.S. has to pay that up. And where do they get that from? Well, they print more money and the value of the dollar goes down. Reciprocally, China is very dependent upon the U.S. for pork meat and for seeds like soy and corn. There's not enough domestic production for that. So you'll hear Trump every now and then say, I told him to buy more corn or I told him to buy more pork. Yeah, those are part of the agreements that kind of keep the two players in check. And what's made that relationship sustainable was actually having China's participation in the World Trade Organization, which amongst the only thing that really matters from that is it guaranteed there would be no tariff war between the two countries. Well, that just got shot down the toilet. So we've got dependency on both sides. Both parties can reach each other's big buttons, if you will. And now you've got a tariff war that's going to just kink the whole system up. So every other country in the world, including Canada, should be very conscious that this isn't Trump's action just against us or another particular country. We're now in a big global stew of chaos, and we need to make sure that we don't get too caught up in this.
Tariffs on Canada remain. Steel, aluminum, 25%. Cars outside of Kuzma, 25%. And there's still in the background that 25% tariff for the fentanyl thing is under one of these pauses. And all these pauses, everybody's kind of losing track of what dates are happening when. That all being said, with this focus on China and so on and so forth, what do you think the future is for those tariffs on steel and aluminum and on cars?
I think they will stick around. And the reason that is in his first presidency, those were the areas that he targeted. And there's some things like even dairy, you can throw that in there, is a big sticking point with the U.S. They've got this notion there that, we're being unfair to U.S. dairy producers. So those are going to sit there only symbolically, and that will show that he's still going to be, trying to show that tariffs work. The other thing that I worry about, and this was going back into January, is that Canada has sort of been the whipping board, the soundboard, if you will, about what tariffs would look like on a global scale. So every time he comes up with a new policy, it seems to be shot our way first to see what our reaction is before extending it on to the bigger economies in Europe and Asia. So I would say we're not out of the woods, and we could probably expect some more salvos of economic turbulence coming down the road.
Robert, just before we let you go, there's been lots of discussion as of late about new trade agreements, Canada, the EU, Southeast Asia, that kind of thing. Do you think that those are going to continue to pick up momentum now that we've seen at least a little bit of a reduction in the world tariffs?
They will. And the big thing for Canada to make that work is to make sure that we invest in the right infrastructure to get those goods to those markets quickly. We do have a lot of loggerheads, right? Montreal is still our biggest port in the east, Vancouver in the west. They would require expansion assistance. We would need internal transportation to be scaled up. All of that means is a lot of public money going into big ticket infrastructure projects in Canada. So whoever becomes PM in May, let's hope that they're emotionally prepared to invest public money into the kind of resources that will put Canadians to work, that will help open up those new markets and reduce the dependency on the U.S. Robert, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, Dan.
That is Dr. Robert Huish, Associate Professor in International Development Studies at Dalhousie University. One of the, I don't know if it was an unintended consequence of all of this business with President Trump and tariffs and economies and policy, is that there have been more eyes looking north, particularly in the physician field, as doctors look at their and medical professionals look at their options and think, maybe Canada's not a bad idea. We're going to see what that means here in Nova Scotia and the efforts underway to try to recruit more American doctors when we speak with Lauren Murphy, the Provincial Director of Recruitment and Volunteer Services with Nova Scotia Health, and Katrina Philopoulos, the Director of Physician Recruitment at Nova Scotia Health. They're both our guests when we come back. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Back in minutes. We heard it the last time around. What is it, 45? Trump, 45, his first term. When he was elected, we heard an awful lot of rhetoric from people south of the border suggesting that they were going to move to Canada to avoid 4 years of Donald Trump. I don't know how much of that really happened. And then now we're into 47 Trump, which is this incarnation of his presidency. And I think this time around that there was the same sort of chatter. And I think that this time, I think there's a little bit more stuff behind that. And I came across an article over the last week. We started this conversation with Dr. John back on House Files a couple of weeks ago, or House Files, on the medical part of the program, Dan. Anyway, a few weeks ago, and it seems to maybe be gaining a little bit of strength. This is an article from the CBC. It says Nova Scotia Health Authority says it hired a doctor eager to leave the United States because of President Trump and is in talks with more than 24 more. The authority launching a digital recruiting campaign in the U.S. in November targeting physicians feeling uneasy about the election results. We're very pleased to welcome into the program. Oops, I've hung up on one of them, Vanessa, if you can sort that out. And I will lock the other one in so I don't do that. It's already, you think I'd be good at it, but I'm not. Anyway, we have two individuals joining us on the program today, if I don't hang up on them, to put a little perspective on this for us. The first is Lauren Murphy, Director of Recruitment and Volunteer Services at Nova Scotia Health. Lauren, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Well, if I stop hanging up on our guests, I'll be better. And it happens. And as Vanessa is working busily to get our next guest on, I'm going to make sure I don't hang up on her. And that is the Director of Physician Recruiting with Nova Scotia Health, Katrina Philopoulos. Katrina, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
And my apologies for hanging up on you.
No problem.
I guess I will begin with you, Katrina, on the doctor file on this one. We know that there's been an effort for many years here in Nova Scotia to try and recruit doctors to come to our province. We know of all the stories of physician shortages. Is this maybe an unintended consequence of the Trump administration south of the border, or is this something that when you heard it was happening that you saw as an opportunity to try and to see if there's anybody south of the border that maybe was uneasy down there and maybe would be open to change?
I think, honestly, we have had, we've been in the U.S. market for several years, and we've engaged with our U.S. Physicians there, and we continue to really grow that interest. I think from our perspective, we saw this as an opportunity to lean in a little bit more and to have a more focused approach in the U.S. market. But our interest has grown really since March of 2023, when Nova Scotia became the first Canadian province to allow U.S. board-certified physicians to practice in Nova Scotia without additional certification.
How's the interest been? Have you seen an uptick in doctors, particularly that are considering moving to Canada, moving to Nova Scotia?
We have seen an interest, and I can say that it's a personal choice. Each person is very individual, and so we've been building these relationships over time, and I think it's really those who are ready to come, we're ready to welcome them to come to Nova Scotia. Doctors
aren't the only ones that we're short of here, and we've had active recruiting campaigns underway, and that's where Lauren fits into this. Lauren, how about the medical professional community? Are you seeing the same thing as we're seeing in the physician field?
Yeah, I think kind of a little bit different from Katrina, where our focus has been really more domestic. So we had a really big focus on supporting Nova Scotians and Canadians in our recruitment. But, with some changes that had been happening, we did ask if we would be open to opening up our opportunities more so internationally, and the U.S. being the first one on our market. It was actually really interesting to see how many people from the U.S. had already applied to us even before we started our digital marketing campaign. And we've seen some really great success. So one of the things that's kind of the beauty of looking internationally is that you have the opportunity to talk to these people about positions that are outside of the communities that they may already be familiar with. So, we've been successful in hiring 5 nurses, like specialty nurses in our rural facilities, because we were able to kind of chat with them a little bit more. We're kind of playing the long game. We're talking a little bit more about the benefits of working in a rural facility. So that has been a huge benefit for us in this campaign.
Katrina, on the doctor side of thing, as I understand it, about 24 or so, really good prospects, and the CBC reporting that one's been hired. Are we still in that ballpark with a couple dozen doctors that are considering the move to Nova Scotia?
So I'll say that we've actually hired 15 U.S. Physicians for next year to come work here.
Awesome.
Not specifically from the campaign. 2 have been from that particular campaign.
Okay.
So, we really do have positive feedback.
What are they telling you in this process? Is it purely based on the administration down there, or is it a quality of life thing? Is it a better work environment here? Is it a series of things?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, it's a really individual choice for physicians, and
Right.
It's based on personal decisions that's influenced by so many factors: their kids, their spouse, their connections, maybe to Nova Scotia. But we also have certain, physicians too that are in specific specialties that it's obvious that they're concerned about how they'll practice in the future in the United States.
Lauren, on the medical professional side, you mentioned nurses and in the rural areas. Is that something that is being identified as quality of life issues as these professionals move north?
Absolutely. And I had mentioned before that these conversations are taking a little bit longer than, say, we're hiring like a new grad fresh out of school who's really familiar with Nova Scotia and the communities. We are able to talk to them a lot more about what life is like here in Nova Scotia. Obviously, some people are a little bit concerned about, well, what does it mean to pay tax? And, but what is it like to work in a hospital where you don't have to charge a patient for every single thing? And that's really been able to drive a completely different conversation than they're used to. We're also seeing a lot of Canadians who had moved to the U.S. who are looking to come back,
right.
Or even foreign nationals who had moved to the U.S. who are looking at Canada as a much more viable option for like a complete future, where they're not seeing that in the U.S. right now.
Katrina, the program you mentioned has been successful with 15 hires before the program. The actual push after the Trump administration took over is up to 2. Are you done with the recruiting effort, or is this going to be something that's ongoing for the next 4 years or so?
Oh my goodness, we're never done. This work is hard. This work continues. We have a number of priorities. This is one of our priority focuses.
Okay.
We pivot and shift as we see the market change.
Lauren, this obviously effort is going to be an ongoing effort south of the border.
Oh, yeah. I mean, south of the border, across our country, and within our province, our work never ends.
Katrina Philopoulos, the Director of Physician Recruiting at Nova Scotia Health, appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having us.
And Lauren Murphy, Director of Recruitment and Volunteer Services at Nova Scotia Health, appreciate your time as well, and all the best in the recruitment effort.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a great day.
We're going to stop down and take another break here on the Todd Veinotte Show. On the other side of that, of course, the news, we'll get an update on what's happening in the news. On the other side of the break, there's a job fair. We hear a lot about recruiting efforts, and we hear a lot about challenges, and we hear a lot about challenges on both sides, from a recruitment perspective and from somebody looking for a job perspective. Nova Scotia Works Spring Job Fair is around the corner. Executive Director of Junction, Philip Cantrill, will be joining us to tell us a little bit about what this is going to do. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. We're back in minutes. All right. Welcome back. As of yet, no major announcements out of the White House. I know I'm being kind of facetious about the whole thing, but these days you really don't. You have to keep a real close eye on what's going on in Washington, D.C. these days, because these things just happen. Anyway, markets are just opening. I'll get you some numbers in a bit. We've had conversations in the open hours here, and we've had different job sectors represented on this program over the last 2 weeks that I've been here, and I know Todd's done many interviews on it as well, and it seems to be a common thread that we're hearing from both the employers out there in various sectors, not just the trades, in almost across the board, that recruitment's tough and that they sometimes struggle to fill open positions, And then on the other side of that coin, I hear from people through emails and on the open hour that they've been looking for work for a long time and just can't seem to get any traction, and it's not an easy go. And then you mix in the younger generation, and I know if they're not already done, they're getting ready to head out for the summer out at the universities, and I know they're all going to try and enter the job market and find that summer job to help pay some of that tuition. So I think that this next event that we're going to highlight here on the program is probably well-timed that way. And what I'm talking about is the HRM Spring Job Fair. It's coming back April 15th and 16th, so next week, for 2 days. So it's going to be a very, very big and very much lots of different sectors represented in it. And I'm very pleased to welcome to the program to tell us a little bit about it, the Executive Director of Job Junction, Philip Cantrill. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me.
I guess let's begin with the genesis of these things. These job fairs are designed to do what exactly?
So it's really an opportunity to provide the clients and the individuals FaceTime with employers, and that opportunity for employers to find those key sort of diamonds in the rough that they're looking for. There's obviously a lot of noise when you're trying to hire people. And when people are trying to be hired, and if you're a job applicant, you throw your resume into a hat online. You don't know if it's ever been heard, if it's ever read. If it is, you're one of 300 people maybe to be selected. And this is an opportunity to get some FaceTime with those employers. From an employer's perspective, it's to find, you're always looking for that ideal candidate. And that can really only be done with a FaceTime conversation with an individual.
Yeah, I have had the opportunity to hire in the past, and that's my thing is resumes are great. They give you an idea, but it's just that you get that feel from somebody, right?
And it's that feel, that touch. Every organization is a little bit different, so you're looking at different characteristics, different traits, different cultures that impact that. And so this is an opportunity to get in front of people and to make those matches in person and one-on-one.
So this is going to be broken into 2 days and 2 very different days.
2 very different days. We've got over 120 employers throughout the 2-day cycle. Day one is pretty much focused more on business, finance, health, sales, hospitality, employment, housing, those types of sectors. Day two is focused more on trades, transportation, natural resources, security, technology, and those types of sectors. So we've sort of split them up a little bit to sort of provide a bit of breathing room. Last year, there were 4,000 people over the 2 days, so you can imagine how busy and hectic that can get at times.
Right.
So we're really trying to sort of match it up so that people have ample time to sit or stand and chat with the employers.
And in those sectors, how many employers are planning to take in this year's event?
So in total, there's 120 employers, and it really varies by sector by sector. Some sectors are represented by 1 or 2 businesses, and some sectors have 10 businesses or more involved. Individuals can go to the hrmjobfair.ca website, and on there's actually all the list of registered companies, what days they're there. You can search by industry, by job type. It's a real opportunity to sort of say, okay, I'm going to prepare myself ahead of time for who's going to be there, who do I want to go talk to, and then set yourself up for success that way.
Where is it?
So it is at the 7071 Chezzetcook Road, which is the old Sears bargain basement. It's the pop-up center for Glow, I guess now, and right behind Walmart and Sobeys on Mumford Road there. Ample parking on a bus route. It's easily accessible. So,
as a prospective employee, what should I bring with me? How should I prepare myself for this event?
So you should bring, obviously, copies of your resume. We do have some ability on site, but that's going to be limited to be able to print. You don't want to be wasting your time at a photocopy or photocopying your resume. So grab a stack of resumes with you to be able to hand out in person at that moment, and really dress for the opportunity in a professional manner. And just bring a positive attitude and a go-getter sort of approach that will set the stage and set you up differently from everybody else. Working
in the sector, and I mentioned it in the preamble, I hear from both sides, obviously, on this program. Is that your experience too? That employers and prospective employees are both struggling in this economy to try and either find a new job or find a job or to find a good employee?
It's yes, it very much is the case. It's funny actually because I think it sounds opposite to what it should be.
Right.
You got job seekers saying I can't find jobs, and you've got employers saying I can't find people, and you're going, how can the two be the same? But the reality is, obviously employers are looking very specifically for the diamonds in the rough. They what they want, and they sort of hold true to that. Job seekers are very much a little bit more broad. But there's always those conversations, and I think this is an opportunity to get together and meet with employers and present themselves, and employers to actually see individuals for who they are. Because as we talked about, when you apply for a job, your resume, your piece of paper, but that face-to-face time and interaction really can sort of say, you know what, there's something I can work with there. And bring on as an employee, or that's an organization I really want to work for.
And today, and it's when I was a younger person, obviously the way that we search out jobs now has changed a lot, right? And being from the digital space, and that job site, and everybody puts their resume on that job site. Is very impersonal, not like the old days where you actually used to I remember as a kid going around business to business handing people resumes, right?
Well, and I think if we can go back to some of that a little bit, businesses would much rather see somebody and be able to hire them that way rather than let's have a stack of resumes that are hidden behind text that we don't know that person or individual. So I'm a big proponent, and we talk about it in Nova Scotia Works as sort of a success factors of if you want to find the opportunities, you're going to have to go and hunt them down. You have to go talk to the employers. You have to go network. That is still a thing, despite the fact that there's that noise of, we've got the online platforms where everybody posts their resumes. But as an employer, I can tell you, when you post a job application, you're getting 200-300 resumes. To filter through that is a long time. It's a chore. And if I can actually meet somebody in person that has 80% of what I'm looking for, well, that's a success right there. I can
make it
work
easy for the employer, right?
Exactly. Well, make it easy for yourself too, right?
Right. No, I get it. Yeah. Absolutely get it. Obviously, this isn't the first time we've done this, and I would imagine that in the past, this job fair has had a success rate that was probably pretty good, or you wouldn't be doing it.
Well, it certainly has been very positive. It's not something we've actively tracked necessarily, like this many employers have hired specific jobs. But we do know that on average, there's a couple of hundred jobs each time when we host these job fairs, and the employers are very happy and very pleased. The feedback from the employers are very positive. The feedback from the job seekers are very positive that they're able to find opportunities as well, and successes come out of this.
Spring Job Fair is April 15th and 16th, 2 big days, it says here.
Yep.
11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And if you go onto the website, what's the website again?
hrmjobfair.ca.
You can see the list of companies that are going to be there, what days, which sectors are being represented, so that you're not going there the wrong day and looking for the wrong sort of job. Anyway, it's obviously it's free.
It is free. It's provided by the province of Nova Scotia through the Nova Scotia Works contracts.
All the best, Philip.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Cantrill, the executive director of Job Junction, who is part of this spring job fair. We do our best to try and connect A to B, and this is a perfect opportunity. You put that resume out to get in front of an employer. Here's your chance. We're going to stop down and take a break. We're going to speak with the chair of the Wine Growers Association Nova Scotia. A couple of things that are on the table. Province is extending some funding for wine growers in Nova Scotia. And, of course, our topic of discussion yesterday, we're perhaps on the cusp of an announcement of beer and wine and maybe some spirits being sold in corner stores. Karl Coutinho will be our guest. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. Hope you're having a fantastic day here as we look out the window and we see sunshine. We still see a little bit of that snow that was left over from that bit of a wake-up call that we're not quite into full-blown spring yet. And I wonder if our next guest has any concerns about spring this late in the year as we welcome to the program today to talk a little bit about the Nova Scotia wine industry, the board chair of Wine Growers Nova Scotia, Karl Coutinho. Karl, how are you?
Great, Dan. How are you?
That snow scare you?
Outside of having to break the shovel back out and put the bikes away, no, it didn't do too much damage to a vineyard at this time of the year.
Still a little bit early, right?
Yeah.
The province announcing this week that they've extended the interim farm wine program another $7.4 million over the next 2 years for registered grape farm wineries. I guess, Karl, for those that don't know what we're talking about, what is the farm wine program?
Yeah, so I mean the farm wine program is there to incent the use of whole grape clusters fermenting here in Nova Scotia. So for the most part, Nova Scotia grapes, if not for the only part, Nova Scotia grapes. From a trade perspective, we just wanted to ensure it was covering whole cluster grapes, and that way it doesn't limit grapes from coming in from anywhere else in the world. But the reality is the cost to bring in grapes from outside of the province would be exorbitant. Plus, the quality of the grapes would suffer. So really, it's there to incentivize the growing of Nova Scotia grapes that's used in, of course, quality Nova Scotia wines that we produce here in the province.
Obviously, critical funding in order to keep the industry viable, at least for the next couple of years.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's a lifeline that we've been fighting for well over a year. And, I was really pleased with the conversations that we have had with the Premier and his team and the province in general over the last, I'd say, 14 to 15 months of them listening to us and really starting to understand our industry a little better, that we aren't just bottling wine and putting it on shelves. We're actually growing the product here first. We're farmers before anything else. And not just the wineries, but a number of independent grape growers, of course, across the province. That's their livelihood. That's our livelihood. So we aren't interested in bringing in wine or juice or what have you from elsewhere in the world just to bottle it in Nova Scotia. We're farming it, and the province has heard that and has obviously reinvested back into the ground with us.
Karl, I know we had discussions about this, I think it was last year, about the difference between Nova Scotia made wine and Nova Scotia bottled wine. Is that still an issue here in Nova Scotia?
I mean, I think the biggest issue, Dan, is that, it's consumer awareness, right? Especially now, with everything else going on in the world, I think consumers, myself included, are trying to do as best they can to buy local and support local industry. So I think it's just the call out to, what is actually produced in Nova Scotia, grown in Nova Scotia, not just bottled here. So there is still work that has to be done there with partners like the NSLC and obviously with the province's help, we can kind of get there on consumer awareness of what is truly Nova Scotian and what is simply bottled here. So that, I think that's still ongoing, but we're moving in the right direction, I think.
Karl, I'll let you mention labels, and I'm with you. I've spent more time looking at labels over the last 3 months at the grocery store than I think I have the rest of my life. That being said, are there labeling rules in Nova Scotia when it comes to Nova Scotia made wine or Nova Scotia bottled wine, and how can a consumer tell the difference?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, we try and advocate for truth in labeling. So if you've got typically in Nova Scotia, if you've got 85% Nova Scotia content in your bottle, we're talking wine here, obviously, then that is considered a Nova Scotia wine. So you might fill it with another 15% from juice from Ontario, what have you. But 100% is what we try and strive for. At Avondale Sky, I'm speaking for our business, but various wineries. If you're going into the 50% in Nova Scotian or 10% Nova Scotian, and you're putting other things in there, it can be misconstrued on the label if it says 100% product of Canada, or it might say, it might have a Nova Scotia flag or something on the label, or It might be a brand that consumers might recognize as a winery that they know to be local because they know it's around the corner or what have you, but it doesn't mean that the product inside the bottle is local. So, we're talking with the province and we're moving forward, hopefully in short order, on a wine authority, which will hopefully make it more clear on what the labeling rules are, what the content rules are, to make it simpler for consumers and as well to protect the industry. So we aren't having people maybe, work around it. So work around the rules and have a Nova Scotia flag on the label that might have product that has nothing from Nova Scotia in it, and it could dupe a consumer, right?
Karl, we've heard with the ongoing discussions about trade and tariffs and those kind of things, the Premier working to lower some of these trade barriers, interprovincial trade barriers, so that we can free up markets in the rest of Canada. What are wine producers here in Nova Scotia? What's their thoughts on it? Is this a good thing, or is this lead to something that could be added competition and could be difficult for the industry?
Yeah, well, Dan, that's a good question. I mean, we're absolutely for breaking down these interprovincial trade barriers, and I've had those conversations with the Premier myself, and he, before, I think before even he went to put his flag on that, he double checked with me and our industry to say, is this something that you guys are still pro? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. And so Nova Scotia is one of three provinces that has always allowed other other products. If we're talking wine, to come in to our province, to our consumers, but it hasn't been reciprocated. So I think that the stance that the Premier's taken, and I know that he's talked to other colleagues of his across the country, was this needs to be reciprocal. So from a Nova Scotia wine producer perspective, the way we look at it is we're obviously heavy into tourism when, not now today, but maybe certainly in the summer. And you've got guests that come from, let's say, all over the country, that come to your winery, have a great time, enjoy the wine. They go back home to, say, Ontario or Alberta, wherever it may be. And they say, you know what, I really want to order that wine. Well, they can't. They can't order it directly from us like, someone in Manitoba or something could do, or BC could do. So the point was, let's break down all those barriers so consumers can have access coast to coast of product versus having to go to their own jurisdiction, their own liquor commission, what have you. Because if someone wants to order, a case of wine, they're not going to go, the LCBO is not going to order one case of wine from us just to put it on the shelf, just to sell it to Joe in Hamilton. So it's all about breaking those down to make it more accessible for consumers across the country to get the products. And then, obviously that can still open the doors into us getting into other markets like or liquor stores like the LCBO, or even partners nearby like PEI, New Brunswick, etc.
Karl, speaking of accessibility, the rumors are swirling again that the province is taking a look at allowing the sale of beer, wine, and maybe even some alcohol in corner stores. What's your thoughts on selling Nova Scotia wine at the convenience store level?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had any direct conversations yet with the province on this. I think everyone's kind of hearing the news and different rumors. Again, for us, if it's an accessibility to market of our product, we're always going to be, for that. That would be great, especially where we've got a province that's spread around a lot of geography, and there is NSLCs or agency stores in a lot of those markets, but they're never going to be as convenient as convenience stores. Having said that, I think part of the discussion that we would want to have with the province when the time comes is just, what is going to be on shelf? If it's just beer, wine, spirits, etc., what does that mean for local? Because I think they've got to look at it through the lens of, if this is going to be good for the local market, it's got to be maybe more heavily weighted to local producers when they're putting that on shelf, still keeping it trade compliant. I think those are the key factors that they've got to look at, because obviously if I can go off the street to get, let's say, a case of beer, if everything in that store is Budweiser or Busch or what have you, and it's not Nine Locks or
right.
Church Brewing or something like that, that to me would be a problem as a producer. But obviously as a consumer, everybody wants convenience, so no matter what it is. So I think consumers would be all for it. It's just a matter of what products that they're going to put on those shelves, I think, would be critical.
Most important question of the interview, Karl, what's the season looking like?
You know what? It's really promising. I mean, obviously you can't look too far into the summer yet to see if it's going to be a rainy one or whatnot, but the winter was okay. I think our vineyard specifically, and I think many of my colleagues would say the same, we wintered well. And our crew's been out in the vineyard pruning and getting ready for the season. So all signs point to, with everything going on with the U.S. and Canada, that tourism will actually be up for us this year. So the whole province should benefit from that. And we look forward to having another busy year on the patio at Avondale Sky.
And a nice bottle of Tidal Bay.
Yeah, you got it. You know it, Dan. That's the best one.
All right, Karl, have a great one. I appreciate your time.
Okay, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That is Karl Coutinho. He is from the Wine Growers of Nova Scotia, who are getting some more money to help foster the industry. And I would assume that with these provincial trade barriers that are on the cusp of falling, it will open up some new business for those wineries that are very well supported in this province, at least. We're going to stop and take a break. On the other side of it, it's time for the open hour. Lots. My goodness. Lots to talk about in the open hour today. The lines are open. 902-405-6000. 902-405-6000. Look forward to our conversations after the news.
X.
And welcome back. Happy Friday Eve, or as it's traditionally called, Thursday, on the Todd Veinotte Show. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It's time for the open hour. The lines are now open. 902-405-6000 is the number. 902-405-6000. There's an awful lot to talk about out there today. I mentioned this off the preamble. We had a conversation with Robert Huish about it earlier in the show today. President Trump yesterday pausing reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, leaving a 10% tariff in place. And maybe was the end game on this? And we mentioned art of the deal, and the art of the deal, put maximum pressure, and then back off to kind of get the deal that you want. Was that the play, to put 20% tariffs on the EU and 20% tariffs on this and 15% tariffs on that and so on and so forth? And then when the pressure builds, and 75 countries come to ask for relief, then you pause it and then you keep the 10% on. Everybody's happy with the 10%. Is that the long game for President Trump with these tariffs? I'm also very curious to your thoughts about how that all rolled out yesterday. We mentioned it again off the top of the program that 3 hours before President Trump announced his pause on those reciprocal tariffs, he put out a Truth Social post saying that now would be a good time to buy. And then 3 hours later, dropped the tariffs, and then we saw almost historic, if not historic, gains on the markets yesterday. And I would imagine that if somebody would have taken that advice, would have made a little bit of money yesterday. If that was the private sector, I guess it wouldn't be the private sector. If that was a public company CEO that did that, there would be certainly investigations, because it kind of felt like insider trading to me. Maybe that's not the right term. Maybe it was. There's no doubt it was inappropriate. And is that just the way that this White House is going to do business? Did Donald Trump blink first in the trade war? Or do you think this was his plan all along? Also, the province consulting with municipalities, and it looks like it's going to change some road safety laws here in Nova Scotia. HRM Councillor Sam Austin telling the CBC yesterday he hopes that photo radar is part of that legislation. And my question to you today is, should municipalities be allowed to use photo radar? There's that. There's all kinds of things to talk about, and I've done enough of it. So let's get back to the phones, and we welcome off the top today, David. David, how are you?
Hi, Dan. Yeah, pretty good. I just want to talk about American militarism, but just regards to the insider trading. 2-3 days before Trump announced the reciprocal tariffs, Marjorie Taylor Greene sold off a lot of stocks and bought a lot of Treasury bonds. And from your conversation today, what at least the Treasury bond interest rates are increasing. So in terms of that, it seems to either be a wise decision or at least a well-informed decision that she made. And yeah, that's massive insider trading, and you'd hope that would be investigated, because if not, it kind of undercuts, confidence in the markets and your reason to invest if you believe the system's rigged against you, which is why the, Trade and Securities Commission in the United States sort of polices that stuff so heavily. So yeah, in terms of American militarism, I fully understand the need to sort of reinvest in our military, especially in the current global context and stuff like that. But as far as sort of Donald Trump's claims that, this security blanket provided by the American military has just been the greatest thing for world peace and security, let's just push back on that and look at sort of American history from the 1960s onwards with regards to sort of foreign wars, CIA-backed coups, backing, totalitarian foreign governments to sort of, get oil or agricultural prices at a good price, and contrast that with Canada's position in regards to, countries like the Soviet Union or, Cuba. And then you take Europe with its history of colonialism and, wars and all that kind of stuff, pulling back from that. Is that sort of a threat or a benefit to global peace, and sort of spending that money instead on social programs? Is that really so unwise? So, Yeah, and just in terms of Europe, they have their Storm Shadow missiles, their Taurus missiles. They have basically their equivalent of the HIMARS rocket systems. They have very good fighter jets and stuff like that. So it seems to me that they've been investing, been making very smart incremental investments in renewing and upgrading their sort of military hardware over the years. So, I'm not really sure that the American military is really the be-all, end-all of global security that Donald Trump thinks it is anyway.
It certainly has kept NATO relevant for the last 50 years, though, hasn't it?
Well, I suppose, but then, it's sort of NATO's kept the United States relevant, and that's sort of the global order and the sort of global trade order that NATO sort of helps police in various oceans across the world. It's also benefited, American prosperity and all that kind of stuff too. So it's sort of, I guess my point is that it's sort of a double-edged sword that, yes, the American military is very powerful. Do they use it effectively? Are they able to use it wisely? That I'm a little less unsure about.
David, appreciate it, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. I get some of his points. I get some of where David was going with that the U.S. military is, has been the biggest and the baddest and I'm putting quotations around this, the police agency for the world as of late. Americans not necessarily using it for the right purposes in a number of different jurisdictions over the years. But I go back to one of the, if not the very first things that Mark Carney did when he was appointed prime minister after he won the Liberal leadership. He immediately went down to, and it was Australia. He didn't go down, but he immediately worked a deal with Australia to buy a missile defense system for the North. Immediately, day one-ish. But we never even, that was 6 months ago was a topic of well, maybe 6 months is bad to say now. It's probably been going on that long. A year ago, that was never a topic of conversation in the North, right? Never. The Americans are there. They'll protect us from the Russian threat or from whatever the threat is, the Chinese threat or whatever it is now, right? And now we've bought a missile defense system to protect the North. All of the party leaders have been talking about increasing our military presence in the North. During the campaign, Poilievre's talked about it. Carney's went up north and talked about it. So, to David's point, I get it, and I understand it, but I think the vacuum created by the change in stance from the current U.S. administration has certainly opened a number of eyes to our and their military, and I know those that call the program are dialing the numbers to say, well, Trump said that you weren't paying enough, and now you're paying enough. And that being said, you're 100% right. And we as a country and the rest of NATO should have been living up to what we committed to. There's no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt about that. You say you're going to spend 2% of your GDP on military, then spend 2% of your GDP on military. Now you want to stop it to 5%. That wasn't part of the original deal, right? Anyway, 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Len to the program. Len, how are you?
And not too bad. It's a nice day, a little windy out and still cool yet, but we're getting there. It'll turn one of these days.
I hope so.
We might have to wait till July comes. Anyway, I'm very annoyed with really the Liberal Party in one way, is that because the Conservatives about a month ago or so were leading by about over 30% in the polls, and Carney, what did he do? He jumped on the wagon to take off the carbon tax, and that was the Conservatives' way of doing things way before the Liberals or before Trudeau even opened his mouth and said he would remove it. And I think I got to give Poilievre a little bit of credit for having started that and to make the Liberals change their mind on the carbon tax. And that is one of the reasons why I might vote for Conservatives, because the Liberals just stole some of the campaign that the Conservatives had. And then the other reason is that I might vote for Conservatives is that the same people are still with Carney that were with with Trudeau. And so that, to me, that makes a big difference. So why should I change my mind? The other thing I like to point out to you, though, is the multimillionaires and the billionaires are making a fortune off of these tariffs because they know more than most of us about what tariffs do to the stock market. And they know that a lot of them probably sold their interest in the stock market and now will buy back into it again. And so the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. What are your comments on that?
I don't know if the conservative lead was as high as 30. I think it got as high as like 23 or 24. But I understand your point. And you said that Trudeau never said that he would. Justin Trudeau never said he would remove the carbon tax. That was
exactly.
that was Mark Carney that did that. And we did, and I did give Pierre Poilievre credit for getting that tax removed, because if he wouldn't have been campaigning on it, we'd still have it.
That's exactly right. And if he hadn't pulled out on that, if Poilievre hadn't said he was going to remove it and never came up with that, it would be still there right now, even with the Liberals.
Absolutely,
it wouldn't have changed.
Thanks, Len.
But as far as the tariffs goes, I can't believe that the United States, the government, can allow Trump to do the things that he's doing without getting the okay from the rest of from everybody else that's in there.
It's the joy of executive power, right? That's the executive branch.
That's a dictatorship, really, more than anything.
Well, you can make an argument.
Anyway, the rich are getting richer from it, and the poor are getting poorer.
Thanks, Len.
And you have a good day.
Take care. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. I don't know if we can call it a dictatorship, but it certainly raises questions about how that form of government works when you have a legislative branch and an executive branch that can change things with a signature of a pen without even having to take it to the legislative branch. I get it that he's got the House. I get it that he's got the Senate. But there's a lot of things that are happening, I think, that are thought of 15 minutes before the tweet goes out. Anyway, we continue the conversation on the other side. The open hour will continue. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand, back in minutes. Welcome back. The open hour continues. A couple of lines available if you want to get on. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. President Trump pausing those reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, leaving 10% tariffs in place. Is that the art of the deal, do you think? Is that what the end game was at the beginning of this? That some of those bigger tariffs, like against the EU at 20%, looks kind of good to only have 10%, right? Was President Trump this part of his negotiation? Anyway, that's part of the question on the table. Huge gains on the markets, but the question is, with him pausing these tariffs for 90 days, did he blink? Do you think that it was part of the negotiation, was the art of the deal, or was this pressure from his inner circle and from some of the people that maybe contributed a lot of money to his campaign that were losing money, saying enough already? Do you think that Donald Trump blinked? Also, the province consulting with the municipalities on road safety issues. It's going to be, I think, a huge bill. But that being said, one of the things that Councillor Austin over there in Dartmouth wants is the ability for HRM to install photo radar. Is that something that you would support? Photo radar or red light cameras in the province of Nova Scotia? 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. We welcome Roman to the program. Roman, how are you?
Hello.
Hello. You're on the air.
Yeah. I think I didn't give her my name. I don't know where Roman came from, but it's Rob.
Okay, sorry, Rob.
That's fine. Yeah, no big deal. Anyways, Dan, myself, I already voted Conservative Poilievre. I believe that for me, the crime problem we face in Canada, I feel Poilievre is really pushing hard on that. I think he's right from 2-3 years ago, he was pushing hard on that. And I think he acknowledges we definitely have a problem, and it seems like he wants to take steps to address that. I noticed a couple of weeks ago there was a fellow on here. He's on here from time to time. Is it Jim? He's a former police officer here.
Former mayoralty candidate too, Jim Hoskins. Yep.
Okay, Hoskins, yeah. But, he seems to be like, cheerleading hard for Carney and the Liberals, but I mean, I never heard Carney say anything about crime. I never heard him make any reference to firearms. I'm just wondering where Carney falls into all this. Why the people that were in power for the last 9 years, they did nothing to resolve anything to do with firearms violence and the illegal guns coming in the country. They don't seem to, anything they've done, let me put it this way, anything they've done was just to attack legal law-abiding gun owners. They haven't really, hunters and sport shooters, they haven't really done anything constructive that has brought those numbers down for gun crime, gun sourced, from the U.S. and maybe other countries coming in on containers, I don't know. But I just don't see Carney yet, hasn't spoke on that very much. And he doesn't seem to acknowledge that the immigration problem we're having in the country as well. So, I mean, for me, yeah, he was just, why would I vote for the same old tired Liberals that have done nothing but put a hurt on this country? They put a severe hurt on this country for 9 years, and there's still people willing to go out there and support them. Does not make sense.
Rob, let me ask you this question, and I'm going to play devil's advocate on one of the points that you raised, and that was the guns coming into the country. We've been told repeatedly by the President of the United States that, things that are flowing through into our borders is the Americans' their problem, right? So is it the federal government of Canada's responsibility to stop the guns coming into the country?
Well, if you aren't, I mean, are we really, would any country leave it up to another country to enforce their border? I think if the U.S., I really think it's up to us to have responsible border restrictions and watch everything that's coming into our country. Can we help? Is it part of a good relationship with a friend or another country, a neighboring country? Is it good to help with that if we can? If we can stop the flow of immigration into their country and some drugs, if we can do that, I mean, then we'll be less of a target. There'll be less people coming into our country to do these bad things and stage from our country. But I think if they could help out with the flow of illegal guns into our country, that would be good. But ultimately, it's our responsibility. It's border services. It's the RCMP, whoever's policing the borders. It's up to them. I would feel. I think.
All right, Rob. No, appreciate it. Appreciate your points. Have a great day.
Yep.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. It was something I raised from the very beginning when President Trump started talking about the scourge of fentanyl flowing over our borders into the United States, and that we had to toughen our border up. Well, the illegal guns, for the most part, are coming from the United States into Canada. So should the party leaders not be pushing back on the President of the United States with the same tact and say, hey, look, this is a problem. We have the stats to prove it. You need to tighten up your border. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Where do we go next, Vanessa? Okay, we'll go here to David. David, how are you?
Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Okay, now get a couple good ideas for maybe a show maybe next week. If you get in touch with Jordan Morgan and for the restaurant.
He's no longer with them. He's no longer with the Restaurants Association.
Oh, that's why we haven't heard him.
You bet. That's probably a good reason why.
How about Miss Larry Utah's wife that does all the...
Sue Utah, are you talking about? Yes.
Yeah.
What did we talk to her about?
About the tariffs.
About the tariffs?
Yeah, tariffs.
On Spring Garden Road, because she's the head of the Spring Garden Road Association. Okay, well, I'll put it into the hopper.
Yeah, and I'd like to take the time to apologize to all the immigrants coming into Canada that they're getting away from the war, and they come here to Canada, and boom, tariff war.
Okay, David, appreciate it, sir.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
902-405-6000. Not sure where that was going, but anyway, 902-405-6000 is the number. The open hour will continue after the news. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. Back in minutes. All All right, welcome back. Was just checking in on the stock markets. It has become a daily thing now, has it not? It's almost like you're looking at the hockey scores. And I just checked them, and it looks like the New York market is down about 825 points this morning. The TSX here in Toronto is down 557 points. So all of the joy and exasperation, if that's a word, I think I made one up, over yesterday's announcement seems to have been done. Makes you feel like maybe I was onto something earlier today when I was talking about people getting into the markets before the president made the announcement he was going to pause those tariffs and watch the markets rise historically. And then maybe at the end of the day, sold off because we're down about 800 points today. So not an economist. Really have a rudimentary knowledge of how the markets work. It just doesn't seem right to me. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Jim to the program. Jim, how are you?
How you doing, Dan?
Good. What's up?
Good. I just caught the tail end of your last caller there in regards to firearms and why Carney isn't speaking on the gun control. I think that's the gist of it, wasn't it?
Well, basically.
I think that's what he was saying, yeah. Well, it's time I spoke up for Mr. Carney again anyway. In relation to the gun control thing, he has more on his mind than that right now, but he has mentioned it one or two times briefly, just saying that he would like to see the same firearms stay in place, that are prohibited, particularly handguns, what the Liberals did. He didn't, but what the Liberals did in regards to handguns, which is basically prohibit most of them. So as far as the gun control, my God, you could spend a whole show on that.
Certainly, Jim. But I think the issue, the bigger issue for gun owners in Nova Scotia and across Canada is the assault rifles, right? Yeah. Because there's a lot of
rifles.
A lot of those rifles that ended up on that list. The first list that went around were some that people had in their collections at home.
Yeah, some did. I don't recall the list, but I mean that's the sense. Listen, I've been arguing with these gun control guys for years, and vice versa. I've never said that you have to give up hunting rifles and legitimate rifles that aren't, say, assault rifles, so to speak. But the Conservatives want to bring back a lot of those assault rifle weapons. So there's arguments on both sides, but I've never been against hunting rifles. I've been against handguns, Dan. That's my thing, and I'm glad that they prohibit them. And the gun owners that say they're picking on legitimate gun owners, they should really know there's one fact that they should get used to. And I'm not saying that applies to everybody, but when they say that they're picking on the guy that doesn't create crime and stuff, most of your domestic assaults involving firearms, guess what? They involve legal firearms. Purchased hunting rifles, etc. Okay, and domestic assaults right across the country and in the United States. Most police officers have been killed over the years with illegal guns like hunting rifles and stuff in domestics. So that's a fact that's there. It doesn't say that you have to ban hunting rifles or anything like that. But when they say, "Oh, I'm a legal gun owner," I'm not more likely to kill somebody. That's true. But some people that are legal gun owners have killed people. So let's get that one straight. Now, listen, on the traffic lights, can I make a comment on that?
Sure, quickly, yep.
Okay, quickly, all in favor of that. When I ran for mayor, that was on my list as well, and we need that real bad. And I think that if the city will purchase that, when they put them out first for the red lights, for the traffic lights, I think you're going to see a big change. The other one would be the strategic ones that you put on the corner in your neighborhood, strategically like that. So I hope they can get it. I thought I heard your newscast say that the provincial government with the new Motor Vehicle Act, I call it, are going to do that, or they're going to say the city can do it. Is that what I heard?
They're in consultation right now with municipalities because they're doing a broad look at the entire what used to be the Motor Vehicle Act and the Highway Traffic Act.
Yeah, the Highway Traffic Act or whatever they call it.
So they're doing a broad consult on it right now, but I would suspect that it won't be long in this term before they bring the legislation. And part of that consult, Sam Austin over at Dartmouth suggested that he'd like to see the city get the ability to use those red light cameras and photo radar.
Yeah, I hope the city gets it. I'll support it, and I'll get that behind that 100% myself as a private citizen. It'll save lives.
Jim, appreciate it, sir.
Hey, take care, pal.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. I know the gun control legislation that the Liberals brought out and then paused and then brought back in pieces has been a bone of contention, a sore point with people in this country, and I think I've said it on the air. I'm a legal gun owner here as well. That all being said, I don't think that many would be opposed to continued restrictions on handguns. We know they're prohibited weapons. We know that that some people have them and some people are sports shooters. I get it, totally get it. But I think that the appetite for handgun ownership in Canada is much smaller than that of those that own shotguns and long guns in Canada. My opinion. 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Ola to the program. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Dan?
I am well. What's on your mind?
I just want to comment about the proposal you mentioned earlier that there's talk about allowing convenience stores to sell alcohol.
Yes.
So that, I think, if it is done, is actually the most sensible thing to do. Because I've always wondered why we need a crown corporation to do something that Sobeys or Needs or anyone can do without even breaking a sweat. So, I mean, I've been to many parts of the world, and Nova Scotia and Canada by extension is one of the few places where we actually have a government agency, with civil servants, with pensions and RSPs and all that, selling alcohol. Those people's talents and skills could be put to better use somewhere else, right? So, and again, the inconvenience of actually having to go to NSLC, because not everyone stays close to an NSLC. I don't know how many new NSLCs have been built in the past few years. The city, using Halifax as a case study, for example, the city has expanded significantly, and NSLC is not necessarily as accessible as it was. So it just makes sense that at this point, that should be decentralized, and you should be able to go to your neighborhood convenience store or neighborhood grocery store and be able to buy alcohol. Especially today, when I can go to my convenience store and get a non-prescription medication. I can buy Tylenol from the convenience store, so why can't I buy alcohol? So that's just what I was thinking. I think if that is done, it will actually be very good for everyone.
Appreciate the call, sir. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. I think there's probably a lot more at stake with somebody buying Tylenol than buying alcohol. But that being said, Ola does make some points about it being convenient, and not everybody has access to NSLC. And why not let the private sector handle it? I don't know what the model is going to look like, if it's going to be an agency store setup, if it's going to be NSLCs inside of stores, or if it's just going to be completely handed over to the convenience stores of the province. That is all the devil's in the details, as they say with that. But it is certainly something that has been discussed here in Nova Scotia for some time, and we may see legislation on that in the not too distant future. Again, the telephone number is 902-405-6000. Barry's been holding for a while. Barry, how are you?
Not too bad. Look, it's terrible when I'm close to 80. The company I work for, when I left, they paid your pension like I got $22 for each year's service. You work there 100 years, you'd have a $2,200 a month pension, which is kind of hard to do. So you have to buy RRSPs,
right,
which I have. I've been retired now for about 15 years. I've been drawing on it. That little stunt of Trump, when you retire, you basically go into balance funds. You don't expect to see them to drop in double digits in a day.
Yep.
That's shocking. They're back almost 10,000 today, but when you're my age, this is ridiculous.
Right.
And I don't think he did it for negotiating, because he always believed in it. The people that worked with him his first term said he was an idiot financially. Yeah, all his companies went bankrupt. This guy doesn't. But he always believed that tariffs could make them rich. And I think the reason it's changed now is they're not having any town halls when the members of Congress go home because they're rioting. They like to hang the guy first. To set an example, there's state judge elections, and guess what? Republicans are losing. I wonder why, eh? Then the world is totally against them, and Elon Musk, Tesla's right down the toilet, and his brother's been running this tariff thing running. Well, he's picking on Navarro, but the way he's talking, who he means is Trump, the stupidity of the whole thing. And I think Trump does not want to lose Elon Musk, and this is to a point that if it hadn't changed quick, the richest man in the world is going to get fed up.
Right.
And that's, I could be wrong, but if you've been watching what's been going on, it's things for the Republicans in the United States are not going very good right now. Barry, appreciate it, sir. 902-405-6000. 902-405-6000. Yeah, that feud between Mr. Navarro and Mr. Musk has, I don't know if it's calmed down over the last day or so, or maybe I missed it because it was kind of busy yesterday with everything else that was going on. But I think that Elon is starting to feel the pinch of his stock price. Tesla, I think this year, and I stand to be corrected, but I think this year Tesla was in like the $375-$400 range. Yesterday I looked at it, and I haven't looked at it today. Yesterday I looked at it, it was like $117 or something like that. So he's lost a dollar or two during this tumultuous time. And again, I was just when Barry was talking, saw the markets down 800 points. So it isn't going to take long at a rate like this for the markets to give back the gains that they had yesterday. And I feel for Barry. I really do. And I feel for all of you out there that have your money that you've socked away for many years, and you put it into a balanced fund. What he's talking about is those are the safe funds. Those are the ones where you don't expect to see big swings, right? Those aren't the ones that are highly volatile. Those are the ones that you put it in, and it either makes a % or two here or there, so that you have a place to hold your money while you're drawing down on your retirement savings, and those are taking a hit. And I feel for people. It's completely out of our control. It's not even in our government's control what's happening, right? And I would imagine that the President of the United States would never admit it, but he was at a gala, not last night, but the night before he made the big announcement, and a lot of his supporters were there, and a lot of the supporters that probably were hurting a little bit more when they checked their portfolios than they were 6 months ago. And I wonder if that played into the reason or into the decision yesterday. The Commerce Secretary didn't know yesterday morning that the President of the United States was going to pause those tariffs. The Trade Secretary didn't know. His inner circle has no idea what he's going to do. And it's absolute chaos. We're going to stop, take a break. We're going to continue the open hour on the other side. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in a minute. All right, we got about 8 minutes left, so I'm going to just keep my trap shut and try to get as many calls in as we can. We welcome John to the program. John, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
I want to talk about Trump.
Sure.
He's constantly, I think, flying by the seat of his pants and making decisions up as he goes, not really planning that far in advance, I think, most of the time, and therefore that's why I think people around him can't keep up and don't know what's going on, as people in the government can't follow. And it's even harder for us in a different country to follow.
Right.
But what I wanted to bring up is that from day one, Trump said that the big problem with Canada was the fentanyl crisis. Even though it's less than 1% of the overall fentanyl going into the U.S. coming from Canada, he says that's the reason he's putting the tariffs on. But what drives me nuts is when I think about the fact when you travel over the border by land into the United States, who is it that checks what's on us? When you cross over the border,
it's U.S.
the
Customs.
It's the U.S. Customs that check what's going in. And similarly, when things are coming, when people are traveling to Canada from the U.S., it's Canadian Customs that are responsible. And this is kind of an accepted norm. So from day one, he's blaming us and so on for all this fentanyl getting in, less than 1%. But yet, it's their customs agents that are responsible.
Right.
It's crazy.
And I agree with you, John. And at the ultimately the when you cross the American line, it's the American authorities that should be checking you. That being said, Canada is still responsible for the lands on its side of the border and patrolling those lands this side of the border to ensure that no illegal stuff is going on, right? Like you and I are talking about crossing at a legal checkpoint. I don't think, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I think I think that the president has been wrong since day one about this. But I think it's more along the lines of because I don't think somebody that's running drugs is going to go through a checkpoint. They're just going to cross over at the closest piece of bush that they can find, right?
Well, there certainly are some being smuggled in trucks and buried in luggage and so on and so on. It is happening. But you're right. But it's just everything about his whole argument about tariffs is just so. And even his calculation, I don't know if you saw the analysis on CBC about how they calculated what each country should be paying, and his whole logic. There's no logic in it whatsoever. Nope. It's just unbelievable.
John, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Roman to the program. Roman, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dan?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I was calling, but I read in the paper that I believe his name is Brendan Mosher, the candidate for the NDP, dropped out personal reasons.
Chester St. Margaret's, right?
Okay. And I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, how disingenuous. And the same thing with Sean Fraser coming back in. Mm-hmm. I think Brendan said, it's for family reasons. Now, look. If I'm going to run for politics, I think before I run, I sit down with my wife and kid and say, look, is this going to be okay? Yeah. And now if he's saying for personal reasons, I think he owes the people. I'm not an NDP guy at all or a Liberal, to be honest with you, but I would be pissed off if a Conservative did the same thing. And so if he's going to drop out, he should come out and say, look, my wife's got cancer, my kid is sick, whatever. Give us a good reason. The story is he's hoping to help the Liberals win, which, if that's the reason, then tell us. So if I'm having a hell of a time, they got to get a candidate now. And
I don't think they can. I think it's too late, right?
Too late.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing with Sean Fraser coming back. He left to spend time with his family, okay? So why is he coming back now? Like, politicians there's so much distrust. And when they do stuff like this, it really pisses people off because, it gives us a good reason not to trust them. Okay, yeah, I'm going to change my mind. All these Liberals coming back. Yeah, I'm going to win now, so I'm going to come back. If you're in politics, you're in it for the long haul. You fight the good fight, and you know that you might lose, you might win, but you're in it. And I just found it very annoying that this guy would drop out this late in the race. I think it's very annoying, disingenuous to the people that would have supported him.
Roman, great points. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000 is the number. The final word today goes to Sean. Sean, how are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Good. What's on your mind?
Just wondering where it seems that Carney was kind of parachuted into this leader type of position. If he were to lose the election, would he remain on as Liberal leader?
Yes.
And fight the fight for the next 3 or 4 or 5, 10 years, whatever.
Yeah, that would I would imagine be a decision that Carney would have to make himself. But if he loses, he would still technically be.
Yeah, I would almost guarantee you this won't happen. He's not the type of gentleman who's going to sit and become the leader of the opposition in the Canadian government. He'll take off. The other question I have is, and I'll make it quick. I know you're up against it.
Yeah.
This Chinese interference with these MPs, and we've heard nothing about this.
Not
now
a
we're
single
holding
thing.
an election.
Yep.
Yeah. We're holding an election now, and we've heard nothing about these Chinese, the influence that has been expanded upon the Canadian government and Parliament.
And I don't
so
think
we've
we
heard
ever
nothing
will.
about this.
And that's
that's
the bad
but
thing.
Yet
is
they want us to have an election, and they want us to vote these people in. We don't know if these people are Chinese plants or not, or it's craziness. Like this whole place has gone to I don't know. It's mind-boggling. I just don't understand. But I don't think Carney's going to remain. If he were to lose the election, I think he's gone within 3 or 4 months. And that's kind of sad that, that's the case.
Sean, I appreciate it.
No worries. Take care, my friend.
902-405-6000. Write that down. Put it in your phone. Get it ready, because don't forget, tomorrow is the Friday free-for-all. It's entirely up to you, as we did last week. Very successfully, I might add. And we're going to do that again this week. I'm going to try and keep my comments to a bare minimum, and you guys can take over the airwaves for a full hour. I look forward to it each and every day, as does Vanessa. We're going to stop and take a break here on the program. When we come back, this was a topic of discussion yesterday during the open hour. Halifax Regional Council voting yesterday 16-1 to get rid of X or Twitter or whatever you call it. The lone dissenting voice, David Hendsbee, and he will join us after the news. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day. During the open hour, I mentioned Tesla stock, and my numbers were wrong. And I think I said that I thought it was, and I hadn't had the numbers in front of me. There are some people out there that perhaps own Tesla stock or are Tesla owners and say that, misinformation feeds into anti-Tesla sentiment, and you're not wrong. So this person sent me a note and said that it peaked at $470 on December 17th, just after Trump won, and $272 yesterday. The lowest it has been is $222. I said $117. My apologies. That all being said, I wonder what that means to the net worth of Mr. Musk, considering that stock is more than half of what it was since December. 902-405-6000, the number. Remember it, because I want you all to join us tomorrow on the open hour. And it's the Friday free-for-all. It's your opportunity to talk about whatever it is on your mind. We had a really great Friday free-for-all last week, and I'm hoping that we do the same thing today. And sometimes the contributor to the Friday free-for-all is our next guest. He's also a regional councillor and a good friend of the show, and probably, if not one of the biggest Boston Bruin fans I know, and that's David Hendsbee. David, how are you?
Would have been better if my Bruins were in the playoffs, but that ain't going to happen this year. The first time in a decade, I'll be on the sideline.
So you get to finally feel, David, what it's like to be a Toronto Maple Leaf fan.
Well, Toronto has an opportunity to go a little further than the first round. They're not playing Boston this year.
See, there you go. Right. So we'll as we start to skate into the playoffs, we'll look back with fond memories on the Boston Bruins.
Well, we'll see what happens next year.
Fair enough. David, we were talking about this in the open hour yesterday, and that was council had a debate on the use of X or Twitter at their most recent meeting, and voted 16-1 in favor of getting rid of it and moving on to something else. You were the lone dissenting voice on that vote. I guess the simple question is why.
Well, I just felt this is more of a political gamesmanship than anything else. I still think Twitter or X is still a viable platform for getting communications out, and I see this as more than just political censorship. And I said, no, that's not right. I think the platform is so popular in regards to a lot of common users across the realm, and I think we should be still using that as a communication tool. I'm not going to give up my X account because I still use that. I opened up a Blue Sky account, but it doesn't have the following yet that Twitter has. So we got, there's one thing about politicians trying to get into the social media. Like, I'm not into Snapchat. I'm not into all the other ones that they have out there. I just got the simple ones: Facebook, emails, Instagram, and X, and now Blue Sky, and you got to cut it off somewhere. But I'm just going to use the most popular platforms that are out there, and X is one of them.
Do you think that the city's going to have trouble getting its message out when it eventually moves away from that X platform?
Well, I'm hoping that the municipality will get more people signed on to their Halifax alert system regards to any emergency situations. So there's that, and I'm hoping that other platforms like Blue Sky will eventually catch up and be as popular. But I think it's going to be difficult for them. We're going to use more public service announcements. Buy more radio time, which you guys wouldn't mind. But but the biggest thing though is that. They're getting away from the print media and stuff. They're going for more social media content. The only problem is in my rural district, I don't have the connectivity to the broadband cellular networks that everybody else enjoys here in the city. But, I still depend on the printed media. The Eastern Shore Cooperative newspaper, it comes out once a month, is my major focus for communicating with my constituents.
David, you mentioned HFX Alert. I know that we're starting to use it more than we did in the past. Do you think that we're making full use of that service?
I think it can be utilized more. The only problem, though, is I hope people don't become too complacent to it. It's intended for emergency alerts and stuff, but I hope we don't use it overly to use it for common things. If we have major traffic snarls or traffic jams and stuff, we could possibly use it there, but we'll perhaps use a 511 more effectively for alerting traffic in the area. But when it comes to catastrophes, wildfires, or we have to open up comfort centers because of, extreme cold or extreme heat situations, that's what Halifax Alert was intended for. So hopefully we can keep that. Before we used to have another platform, I think it was called Grand Parade. It's more of a general information platform. And that really didn't take off anywhere. So I think we're trying to find a way of, can we get our message out more effectively? And I think that Halifax Alert for emergency purposes is there, but the everyday PSAs and consultation with public notices in regards to surveys and stuff, I still hope that I would have hoped we'd still continue using X, but I guess we're not. So I guess I'm going to be using it on my own personal platform to get the word out.
When was that part of the debate when it was going to cease operation?
I think they're going to look at trying to wind down the Halifax accounts. So I think there's 8 Halifax Twitter accounts or X accounts that they have in regards to police and fire, EMO, and stuff like that. So recreation. So I think that's going to phase them out probably in the next month or so.
David, before we let you go, Councillor Austin quoted in an article in the CBC today advocating that the city be allowed to install photo radar as part of the provincial government's plans to revamp the Highway Traffic Act, whatever the name of it is now. Do you support the use of photo radar and red light cameras?
Yes, long overdue.
You think that this would help with some of the issues that you're seeing in your jurisdiction with speeding and such?
Well, in my district, I don't have any traffic lights, so I don't have to worry about that. But in regards to speeding matters, I think that's more, my area is more provincial jurisdiction for the RCMP to control.
Right.
But I have neighborhood subdivision areas that are people complain about speed and stuff, so it could be helpful there. When you get into town stuff, where I like to see is perhaps some more enforcement on our bus lanes, where you drive now through the Cogswell interchange, you'll see a lot of people still driving through the bus lanes. And so hopefully when that Cogswell interchange gets fully developed, fully marked out, that we can have some enforcement, make sure the buses get through.
So you're all in on red light cameras and photo radar?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hendsbee, appreciate your time, sir.
All the best, Dan.
That is our HRM councillor, David Hendsbee, who was the lone dissenting voice in the council debate this week on the use of Twitter. Will be wound down now, and options to be explored, as I understand, looking at different platforms like Councillor Hendsbee mentioned, Blue Sky, or maybe expanding the use on some of their existing services like the HFX Alert. The province changing the rules for renters. We'll dig into that when we come back with the Rental Housing Providers of Nova Scotia's Kevin Russell. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic afternoon as we roll along here on a Thursday, or as we like to call it around here, Friday Eve. Some news out of the province this week with regards to the residential tenancies program. It's hard to say. You want to say tendency, but it's residential tenancies program with the goal of improving communications for both the tenants and for the landlords. We welcome to the program for some perspective on this from the Rental Housing Providers of Nova Scotia, Kevin Russell. Kevin, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no, it's our pleasure. And I know you and I have talked about this, and I know you and Todd have talked about this an awful lot. And I think that these changes to these rules have been something that I know that the landlords and yourself have been asking for some time.
That's correct, Dan. We've been putting forward research papers for a number of years around these rules and regulations, and and the government has decided to take action, and we feel this will start to restore some balance in the system and the processes of the residential tenancies.
The top line item on here, I would imagine, from the landlord end of things, is that the timelines for landlords have been reduced in some cases.
Yeah, correct. I believe you're referring to the 3-day notice for late rent.
Yes.
And this isn't about eviction. It's about preventing arrears from getting out of control. Because we know once a tenant is 2 months behind, they often can't recover. And this gives them a better opportunity to seek early resolution. And really, the tenants still have 10 days to either pay, leave, or appeal a process that can take up to 6 months. So, it's not like it's on the 4th day, tenants are being evicted, or after the 10th day, there's still a process in place. But a tenant may choose or hopefully pay the rent, so we don't have to go through the process.
So, as I understand it, the new rules suggest that 3 days after a non-payment of rent, a notification can be now, under these new rules, can be issued, and then 10 days after getting that notice, tenants can either pay the rent, leave, or appeal. Correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So, does that mean I guess it would be 13 days if you count all of it together? Does that mean that if they don't either rent or pay the rent or leave or appeal, is that when the eviction process begins?
Well, no. If they don't pay and they don't appeal, then the tenant would have to leave. They've lost the opportunity there, so that would end the process right there. So they would have to do one, either pay, leave, or appeal. And if they don't appeal, the process ends.
And they're essentially evicted.
Yeah, they have to be gone by. I would think. I haven't seen all the details yet, but I would think they would have to be out of the unit by the end of the month.
Also included in this legislation changes, there's a number of things about email addresses and those sort of things, but one of the things also that was a highlight that I saw was that some of the decisions from the hearings are going to be moved online. Is that a good thing to sort of get the communication out there quicker as opposed to go through the mail?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot to say to get the information out. If decisions are coming out by mail, it takes there's a chance that it can go astray, or there's really no signature on it. So having it online will go a long way. And also we agree with the publishing of the residential tenancy decisions. We feel that will help educate both tenants and rental housing providers on what to expect in a hearing and help them better prepare. We just wish that instead of just printing some, we like to see all decisions printed. I mean, that's and published. So there'd be greater transparency for both tenants, landlord, and the public and the media to see what goes on in these hearings.
Also in here, and it's not clear to me, and I'm hoping you can clarify this for me, Kevin. A common anniversary date to be established for land lease communities. What exactly does that mean?
Dan, I'm going to have to apologize. That's out of my scope. We don't deal with landlord communities here.
Okay.
But I will go out on a limb and say that what it does mean it's similar to what takes place in rental housing and in apartment rentals. That there's a the dates are common, usually on a 12-month period. So, but again, that's I'm going out of my wheelhouse here.
No, that's fair. The question that kind of popped in my head is that they're gonna move people's anniversary dates all to a common time, and that would be confusing for some, considering that some have just entered their lease. But if that's not in your wheelhouse, I get it. I understand that.
That's sure. But, yeah.
At the end of the day, Kevin, this is gonna speed up the process. For context, how long does it normally take before these rule changes to have somebody to have them evicted from their apartment once they don't pay their rent today, before these rules take effect?
Well, today it's usually you're into the second month of rent, so before you can file for a hearing. So what would happen is that it can take upwards to 6 to 8 months usually for the final resolution to the process when all appeal processes are followed. So really it's going to be little change in that for tenants, because if they do choose to appeal, it still be a process that takes up to 6 to 8 months.
Kevin, what's the market out there like right now? How's the occupancy? I'm starting to see more advertisements and such for apartments for rent.
Well, you're anecdotally you're correct, and right now, from what we're hearing from our members, the market has softened, and it's mainly linked to immigration, lower immigration numbers, and also the fact that a number of the international students have been leaving and not returning. So we are seeing a softening in the market, and we feel that there's starting to be balance in the supply and demand equation. And we see at the high end new developments, we're seeing rental incentives take place, and at the existing units, we're seeing some rental incentives and rent reductions. So the market is starting to free up and become normal again. And hopefully that's a signal that we've always heard from politicians, whether in the government, that if balance was restored to the market, then they would take a look at eliminating rent control. So we'll have to see how this all plays out.
How close are we to balance?
Well, the biggest problem we have in this industry, we're always looking at data in a rearview mirror, right, because everybody waits for the CMHC rental market outlook numbers to come out, and they don't come out into January or sometimes February, and it's all based on an October survey. So, what I'm hearing and the consensus is we're probably around 3% right now of vacancy, and I would think by the end of the year, by the time all the new units come to the market, we could be around 3.2, 3.5. The official number won't be out to January.
Still an awful lot of construction. I'm looking at a bunch of cranes right now, and more inventory coming online, I would imagine, month by month, right?
Yeah, there is. I mean, over the you can expect over the next 6 months, 7 months, probably another 3,000 units coming to the market. Just that's what's predicted. So,
Kevin, appreciate your time, sir.
Always a pleasure, Dan. Thank you very much.
That is Kevin Russell from the Rental Housing Providers of Nova Scotia. That is good news, because there was a period of time there for an extended period of time where we were under 1% occupancy. Now we're, at least from what Kevin is hearing, we don't have any hard data, but anecdotally, we're hearing about 3%. And just watching the market as I do, and chatting with people who are in the actively searching or have just found apartments, I'm hearing that it's still not super easy to do, but there's less competition at the doorstep now, let's say. If you remember back a couple of years ago, when an apartment ad came on, there was 10, 15 people lining up to get their rental applications in, and the landlords had, if you weren't ready to go that very second, they had a half a dozen other options. I don't know if that's still the same, but from what I'm hearing, and again, it's anecdotally, is that it's the competition for open apartment space is not quite as steep as it was at one point. That being said, Kevin said that we'll see rental reductions. If there has been, again, anecdotally, I'm not seeing massive reductions in rent. I would suggest that the market, at least the stuff that I look at, has been holding kind of steady as of late. Anyway, more occupancy, more balance, as Kevin calls it, will be better for the rental community because it's supply demand, right? Is that the art of the deal? Just saying. Going to stop down and take another break. When we come back, we're going to get an update on what's going on in the news. When we come back, the markets are in absolute chaos these days. If you have any money in the market, we heard it in the open hour. I've been talking about it. What do? Well, the president and the CEO of East Coast Credit Union, Ken Shae, is here. He's going to join me in the studio, and we're going to try and pick apart what you should do as an investor in Tariffville. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. Tariffs, Trump, interest rates, markets, recessions, embargoes. It just goes on and on and on. It's a never-ending cycle these days. And as an investor, what the heck do you do in a market that is today? It's yesterday 2,000 points ish. Today it's down 1,000 points ish. What's the best thing to do? So you've heard our next guest voice on our radio station for a very, very, very long time, probably as long as mine, if not longer. And he is the president and CEO of the East Coast Credit Union, and that's Ken Shae. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan.
I guess let's start there.
Yeah.
I would imagine that your phone's been busy as of late with people that are very concerned about what's happening on the markets and their investments.
Yeah, definitely people are concerned. And, it's more the uncertainty of what's happening out there that makes it harder. It's hard for businesses to plan. It's hard for individuals to plan. And it seems these things happen on a whim. It's like one day everything's dire, and then the next day, well, we're going to give a reprieve to everyone. Oh, but wait, we're not going to give a reprieve to these people because of this or that or the other thing.
Right.
So that makes it very difficult for people to plan. And so I think what it does stress is that you really need to go back to the fundamentals. So when you're thinking about your investment strategy, you have to think about, why did I put that money where I put it? And if it's there for the long term or the long haul, it's probably okay because, things will go up and down. And we do have, history has proven since 1920 something that, the market will produce a 8 or 10% return over the long haul, but it's definitely not going to be a smooth ride.
And people waking up in the morning like me and checking their portfolios going, oh, what's going on, right?
Yeah. And so the big thing is don't panic.
Right.
You're not alone. And there's a lot of other people that are going through exactly the same thing. And really, I think what it does is it pushes people to go back to their fundamentals. Like, really, it's about your risk tolerance, and your ability to save for the long haul. So if you're worried about your money, don't pull it out and put it under your mattress, but maybe think about your diversification. Do you have the right mix of assets to help you to be where you want to be? So if you've got a long window before retirement or before requiring those savings, the market is an okay place to be, whether it's today or whether it's 5 years from now. Still probably going to be an okay place because long haul, you're good. If you're looking at, next year, 2 years from now, and you really need the money, I would not be sinking 100% of it into the market, although maybe today or yesterday might have been better. I don't know. But it's not really the right place for that kind of money because you really want to make sure you've got the right horizon. for the funds that you're trying to use. So if you're looking at shorter term, it's bonds, it's GICs, it's safer investments that you're going to get your principal back plus your whatever agreed upon rate of interest, and you can count on it. So the people that I feel the worst for are those that maybe didn't do the planning up front, because that's really important. Because if you've done that right, you often can ride out these turbulence or the undulations of the market, because you bought the right things for the right reasons for the right time frame for yourself. And if you've done that, then you're probably okay. You still can get a lot of angst when things happen, and it's been a really unusual time in the market, I'll say, this recent turbulence, and it's really caused because just nobody knows what the next day is going to bring. So.
You mentioned some of the other vehicles. Do you still recommend the traditional savings vehicles that we're accustomed to, even in a volatile market?
Yeah,
like
even
this?
in a volatile market, GICs are not volatile. They're always going to be worth what they were worth, and they're always going to have a certain rate of interest, so they're pretty safe. For really short-term stuff, you've got treasury bills, you've got different kinds of shorter-term investments with very low risk and very reasonable returns. They're not going to get you, 30% in a day like some of the stuff did yesterday, but you're certainly not going to lose your shirt either.
Right.
So you got to kind of balance between, the expected return and the risks you're willing to take. And then the time frame is also really important, because if it's money that you need tomorrow, you don't want to have it in a place where if you take it out, you're taking a loss of 30% or whatever, right? So we do suggest kind of laddering of things, laddering of time frames, laddering of different types of investments, and making sure you're diversified across a broad spectrum of things, not just in one particular thing. And then that goes for even within those categories. So if you're in, mutual funds, you may not have it all in the same mutual fund because there may be different parts of the money that you want to do different things. Or you may be in individual stocks, same thing. You don't want to all be in one stock, because if it goes up, you're doing good. If it goes down, you're not doing so good. So trying to maintain a bit of a diversified portfolio can help people to maybe soften the blow in these times. So if you had a partially bond and partially equity-based portfolio recently, you didn't see the fluctuation as badly on the bond side or on the fixed income side, but you would have seen a little more on that equity side. And over time, hopefully, you'll make up that equity amount on future gains. But right now, it's hard to know when they're going to come because there's just too much insecurity and too much change in the market. It's really, really difficult for people to get their head around.
What about those that are in the process of or are about to renew their mortgages, and so on and so forth? I know that there's been a lot of discussion in the last 2.5, 3 weeks that we're heading into the R word, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about recession, and with recession comes the central bank starting to reduce interest rates. What do you recommend as somebody that is either looking at a mortgage? Is now the time? Do you wait? And if you have to renew, do you perhaps look at a shorter term?
I think it's kind of a risk tolerance thing from a personal perspective. If you're somebody that sleeps better at night because this is what my mortgage payment's going to be for the next 5 years and I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Rates aren't really bad right now. They've come off their highs a few years ago. They're sitting at a reasonably good place. They're not quite as low as they were at their lowest, post-pandemic, that kind of thing. But they're certainly at a very good historic rate if you compare over, 20, 30 years. So no real big risk in going long term, but you may do a little better if the R word comes into play, because obviously the Bank of Canada and the monetary policy will be hopefully more favorable, which will mean a little bit lower rates. There's not too much further to go down, really. That's one of the downsides to this. Like we're at 2 point something as the Bank of Canada rate. So there's only a small amount they can go before it gets to zero or whatever. But certainly there is certainly signals out there that we're probably going to see a few more rate cuts over the next 12 to 18 months. So if you do have a mortgage and it's coming up shortly, certainly it wouldn't be a bad idea to take a 12 or 18, 24-month term. But if you're somebody that, my payment is X and I can handle that, and, I've got my money coming in and my money going out's all balanced and I feel good, there's nothing wrong with a 4.25 or whatever you could get for a 5-year, because at least then you can sleep at night and you don't have to worry about that changing from day to day.
Right.
So it really does, I think, boil down to what you feel the most comfortable with. But talk to your individual advisor, talk to your institution, look at what your options are, make sure you understand if rates change, what the penalties are, all that kind of stuff. Because that's the other thing is, you may take one thing, but you may want to get out of it or do something different. So understanding the rules and how things work, is also very important, I think, from a financial advice perspective, just to make sure that you've got all your bases covered.
Lots of talk as of late with tariffs and the impact of on the economy and the potential for job loss, very prevalent in Canada. People are trying to save for a rainy day, and may not be looking at a really long-term investment. Want to have some kind of liquidity in their money. Obviously, there are some things they can do rather than just jam it, as you said, underneath their mattress and hope for this to end. Yeah, certainly. The TFSA has been a very popular element for people in their financial plan. Can be a great way to save for a rainy day, emergency savings, and it can be put into multiple types of investments. It can be in a savings account. It can be in term deposits. It can be in bonds or stocks. It can be basically the full array. So that is something that's highly recommended, because of course the earnings that you get on that then aren't taxed, which is a nice bonus. A lot of the financial experts recommend you try to have set aside about 6 months salary. It's not always possible. That's a big number, but trying to have a little bit is really good, because we always have emergencies that come up. The car you go to get in, you get a flat tire, and that's might cost more than you thought, because it's not going to be able to have a patch. It's going to need to be replaced or whatever it happens to be. So I think it's it's good for people. If you don't have an emergency fund, start small. Put away $10, $50 a week, whatever you can afford. And when you set it aside, try to keep it out of your regular other parts of your affairs, so that it doesn't quickly get sucked back in when you have a need on the weekend. We need to try to make sure it's separated. That's why the TFSA can sometimes be good, because it is a separate instrument, and there's a little more complicated. It's not complicated to take stuff out or put it back in, but you got to make sure you understand when you take it out and put it back in, you've got limits and all that stuff. So It's a little more confusing and a little more likely that you'll just leave it once you put it there. Certainly there's good programs now for people if they're trying to save for a home. Like we've got the First Home Ownership Savings Account, which is a great option for young people that are not sure but think they might be going in that direction. They can use that to save, and they get a tax deduction, plus they get the ability to not pay tax on it while it's growing. And if they know they're going to buy a home in a certain period of time, then that's a great vehicle for them. The old regulars, RSPs and things, and just basic savings accounts are also good. So it's what works for you as a person. And I highly recommend that you sit down with somebody and have a chat about, this is my situation and how can I move ahead a little bit. And it doesn't matter where you are. The best time to start is now. Right now. And the better time to start would have been yesterday, but it's too late. You can't do that. So the best time to start is right now. Ken, crystal ball question, and if you can't answer it, I get it. Where do you think the bottom is? Where is this all going to end? Oh, that's a really tough one. There's a lot of pundits out there that are saying that maybe all this stuff that's happening is a bit of I hate to say it, a mugs game, that there's like an ulterior motive or a different purpose behind it. Right. And if that's the case, I'm hoping that things might get back to normal sooner than later, because there does seem to be, even in today's news, there was a lot of talk about countries now coming to the table trying to negotiate a reasonable deal rather than it being the deal that was put in front of them. And so I'm hopeful that can happen. And if it does, then I see we may be near the bottom, but at the same time, it is important to remember that markets do this every so many years. There's always some kind of event that causes a bit of a deflation in
where we are, and then it takes a little bit of time for it to recover. So hopefully we're closer to the bottom than we are to the top, and that things will go up from here. But really a hard one to answer with any kind of sense of. I think if I could do that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be on some beach somewhere enjoying a margarita or something.
Well, I hope I'd be with you, Ken. As always, a pleasure, sir, and let's hope that we are close to the end.
Let's hope we are. Thanks, Dan.
That is Ken Shae, the President, CEO, East Coast Credit Union, in the studio. When we come back, Habitat for Humanity launching a Habitat home repair program. We'll dig into it. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. Dan Ahlstrand along with you. We have a conversation with this organization a couple times a year because, to be quite honest, they do fantastic work. And what I'm speaking of is Habitat for Humanity Nova Scotia. And in the studio with me today is Caleb Freeman, Manager of Marketing and Communications. Caleb, how are you, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
You guys are a busy group of people, let me tell you. There's always something going on at Habitat for Humanity. We saw a couple weeks ago the story of the Habitat build of a family that lost their home in the wildfires in Upper Tantallon, and that was a tearjerker when I watched it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of some of the work that Habitat does for people in the community. You're in here today to tell us a little bit about sort of the next level Habitat deal, and that's the Habitat home repair program. Caleb, tell me a little bit about what exactly this program is.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much for having me. So a big part of Habitat for Humanity Nova Scotia's kind of strategic focus is helping families that are living in core housing need, helping them find an affordable and sustainable path forward. We've done that for a long time through our affordable home ownership program. So that's kind of paving a way.
It's the one everybody's familiar with, right?
Right, exactly. Paving a way to home ownership for people that have maybe been locked out of kind of the traditional
market. Hand up, not
market.
a handout.
Exactly. Yeah, you know exactly what we're doing. That's great. And this is really a way of kind of increasing our impact and meeting more people that are dealing with being in core housing need right now. And so that means, people that are living in houses that are not, adequate, right? That there might be like exposed wiring, or that there might be, they need to replace a roof, but they can't afford to do that. And so basically what this is it's a pilot program where we are providing subsidized health and safety repairs for low-income households and seniors. Repairing roofs, fixing.
You're not building somebody a deck to use. These are critical repairs that can lead to somebody getting sick or hurt.
Right, and providing accessibility modifications and other critical repairs that are really meant to kind of prevent displacement or homelessness. And to fund that, we are offering market repairs, so paid renovation services. So this is open to the public. That includes something like, deck construction and repair, door installation and repair, siding services, window installation. So we have opened that up to the public, and, the funds that come in through that fund critical repairs for, people that otherwise would be displaced or maybe living in unsafe or unhealthy environments.
Right. So you're opening up a program to the public to get, and I'm going to put quotes around this because I know building a deck's not an odd job, but is something that you may want to hire a carpenter or a construction crew to do, and the proceeds from that go to help fund this really important program to fix things for people that just can't afford to get them fixed.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're growing our team right now. We have a really wonderful repair and construction specialist named Tim that just joined our team. He's got several decades of experience doing home renovations and repairs, and so he's really leading this program. So it's been great to kind of have him be part of the team. But yeah, this is a way where people that can afford those renovations and are maybe wanting to do some work on their home can do that, but at the same time help people in their community. So it's really kind of a one of a kind program. I don't think there's really anything that's being offered like it in Nova Scotia. So it's something that we're really excited to roll out, and something that we think will have a big impact on keeping people in their homes and also maintaining the affordable housing stock that we have. That's a huge part of, we definitely need to be building more and more, but we also need to be maintaining affordable housing stock. Nova Scotia, I think, is one of the provinces that has one of the oldest kind of residential buildings. A large swath of our residential buildings were built prior to 1991. And so we're going to start to see more and more homes in need of repairs. And if we're just tearing stuff down and rebuilding, we're going to see people priced out. And so we're trying to...
Can't afford a new home. I get it.
Exactly.
So if somebody wants to take part in this program, Caleb, what's the best way? Is it just to get into contact with you fellas?
Yeah. So we've got a website. You can visit habitatns.ca/repair to learn more about it, or you can, give us a call or email us. We have a dedicated email. It's repair@habitatns.ca. If you want to send us an email, that goes to my colleague Michelle, who's wonderful, and she'll be very excited to talk to folks.
And happens to be listening right now, so Caleb's scoring some points. Anyway, Caleb, this is a fantastic program, and it's a pilot, and I hope that it's successful, because it really sounds like it's something that could grow some legs in communities, because you're right, the housing stock is getting older, people not necessarily, and let's face it, there's a labor shortage in the construction trades. It's harder to get things done and not only to get it done and get it done right, but also help those in need. I think it's a win-win on both sides.
Absolutely. That's what we think as well.
Caleb, appreciate your time, sir.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
We'll see you at the Restore, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'll see you there.
Don't forget the Restore. It's a fantastic place if you're looking for things. Anyway, people, I appreciate your time for dialing the numbers and joining the show. You make my day each and every day that you do it, and the open hour would be pretty boring if it was just me. Don't forget, tomorrow is the Friday free-for-all. You get to lead the conversation. I'm going to try to keep my big yap shut. And we'll try to get on to as many calls. It was successful last week. We're going to continue that again this week. That's going to happen at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Make sure you tune in. Thank you very much to all of our guests, including Caleb, for taking some time out of their day, coming into the studio or joining us on the phone, shedding the light on important subjects and important topics, and giving us a little bit of advice. I know I always feel a little bit better after talking to Ken Shae about my investments these days. A super big thank you to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass. Folks, I can't say this enough. Without her, this show just wouldn't go anywhere. She is the glue that keeps everything together. She gets mad when I call her glue, but she is. She's fantastic. Have a fantastic day, everybody out there. Remember, it's going to get better. The markets are going to get better, I promise. Take care of yourselves, and remember, be kind to one another.